The budget for Get Shorty, we couldn't get it made. It took us 6 years. Danny and I went everywhere with it. And MGM finally agrees to make it, and only for $30 million. And the budget comes in $30,250,000. And MGM says, well, you got to lose $250,000. We have a big meeting with Mike Marcus and the heads of the studio. And I go, okay, let's talk about it. Let's see what we can lose. And they're saying, well, don't you have too much in for parking? And I'm going, guys, parking's $2,000, and it's not. We can't do this all day. It's crazy. I'll tell you what we'll do. There's one scene with Gene Hackman, Ben Stiller, who isn't in the movie, Ben Stiller and Travolta, and it's on the set of one of Gene Hackman's 10-Day Wonders, and it's a hilarious scene, but it's 2 nights of shooting. It's cost $250,000, and even though it's a hilarious scene, it doesn't move the plot forward. And if you can lose a scene from a movie and it doesn't affect the story, it shouldn't be in the movie. And Mike Marcus says, how much is it? I said, $250,000. We're on budget. We can make the movie. He goes, it's my favorite scene. You can't take that out. I said, Mike, you have no choice. The budget's $30 million. That scene's $250. We lose that scene. We're at $30 million. We can greenlight it. He says, don't tell me I have no choice. I'm the head of the studio. What's it going to cost to put that scene in? I said, $250. He said, you got it. One of my stories on the TED Talk is, let it be their idea.
Yeah.
I could never shove it down there, but by letting it be Mike's idea to bring it back in, success. And by the way, we shot the scene and it's not in the movie because it's the single funniest scene and it didn't move the story forward.
There we are. Really, no, really. Hello, Peter.
Hello, Jason.
I came up with a jingle. Want to hear it?
No.
You don't want to hear it?
No. Go ahead. Go ahead. All right.
Tell me if you like it. Here we are in the studio, Peter and a guy you know, getting ready to do our show. Really, no, really. Let's go. Welcome, Barry Sonnenfeld. Hi, Bear.
Hi, Jason. Hi, guys. I have some thoughts about your opening.
Okay, please.
First, I think the jingle was worthy of the Castro convertible jingle, and the.
As long as it's better than Cars for Kids.
Cars for Kids just came to mind, yeah.
No, that's bad. Yours is better than Cars for Kids.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Who's the first to conquer space? It's incontrovertible that the first to conquer living space is a Castro convertible.
Sure.
That's some fine literacy.
Yeah.
Also, the other thing, Jason, if you do it again, for those that are only listening to the podcast, you don't want to bang the table because they just wonder what that thudding is because they're not seeing your hand bang the beats, and we can add those in post. So you want to fake the hitting of the.
This is why he's good.
You know what? I love this man.
By the way, there's a chip in our kitchen table that my wife is convinced is my new watch from me gesticulating.
By the way, it's so funny, Barry, listening to you say that and give direction right off the bat. I'm laughing, and you have to tell me which actor it was where you just wanted him. And a lot of the book is talk faster to actors.
Right.
But there was the one where he gave you like, okay, I can talk faster, but is it because the character, and you went, yeah, just talk fast. Yeah. Just talk faster. Right. Whatever you decide. Yeah. Just talk fast. You didn't give a shit on what the reason, and he's trying to do a thing, and you're going, yeah. That could be the reason. Talk faster.
Right. I was Lee Pace, and we were getting ready to have Lee audition for his lead role in Pushing Daisies, which he got. But when he first came in to work with me and the casting director, he was so profoundly slow that I started to sweat, and I'm not a sweater. And I'd say, listen, that was great. Let's just do it one more time, but maybe 10 billion times faster. And he would say, okay, but am I talking faster because I'm shy or because I'm hiding something or because I'm nervous? And I said, I don't care. Just talk faster. And that worked great with Lee. And then he came in the next morning. If you watch the pilot to Pushing Daisies, you've never seen an actor talk faster because here's the thing. When you get actors to talk faster, they can no longer act. And all I'm trying to do is take the acting out of the performance, just throw it away. In fact, I was talking to Bill Hader 2 weeks ago, and he said how much he loved the whole talk faster thing. And he was directing some guy, and he said, talk faster, talk faster. And it still wasn't working. And Bill finally said, just don't act. And that's what we're all trying to do by having people talk. Also, by people talking faster, you can stay on them longer. You can play the comedy longer. Editing is the enemy of comedy. You want comedy to play out in master shots where you see action and reaction. I mean, the Seinfeld show is a perfect example of that. I was talking about Bringing Up Baby, where you have Cary Grant in Katharine Hepburn's aunt's robe while Katharine Hepburn is calling him Mr. Bones, and that's not his name. And what's hilarious is Katharine just jabbering, Cary trying to get a word in edgewise, but because it plays in two-shot, you let the audience find the comedy. You don't cut to a close-up and say, look, here's a funny line. And I think the audience really loved the idea. It's what sitcoms are all about. I mean, it's all about the master shot.
You know what? Because we started for a second on Pushing Daisies, you fascinate me for a number of reasons. Please. One is you are, and I'm not just being kind, you really are supremely talented. And you are an incredibly funny man and an insightful guy. But I also, my scant interactions with you would lead me to think you are not a sentimental man. And what I loved about Pushing Daisies, I'm fascinated in what drew you to do the project, other than the idea of if you touch if you touch something dead, it can bring it back to life. But if you touch it again, it's dead forever, which is a fascinating, beautiful, just idea for a story. But what I loved about Pushing Daisies was there is a true sentiment to it, quirky for sure, but a true sentiment that I am surprised you were attracted to. Is that because I'm misreading your intention in the piece, or am I misreading who you are?
Well, you're misreading me. Actually, you should see me weeping uncontrollably, reading to my kids about a New York Yankee pitcher pitching a no-hitter, only he had one arm. I'm a big, you should be with me when I watch, the Jimmy Stewart Capra movie. It's a Wonderful Life. I'll start crying the second Mr. Potter goes like that with his arms wide and it freeze frames. I'm weeping for the whole movie. Here's the thing. There were two scripts I've read in my life that I thought, whoever gets to work on this, it's going to be career changing. The first one was the script for Blood Simple. When I read Blood Simple, I knew I was going to become a known cinematographer. And it was the first thing Joel, Ethan, and I had ever done because it was so specific and visual and funny. And the second thing was Pushing Daisies. I read Brian Fuller's script for Pushing Daisies, and I knew that I could shoot it perfectly. There was a challenge, which was you need people, the two leads, not to touch. I think there's a difference between emotion and saccharine, and I hate saccharine. I mean, one of the great things at the end of Raising Arizona, just when you think it's saccharine, because we're in voiceover and how everyone's at Thanksgiving and it's great and everyone's happy. The very last line that Coen wrote was that maybe it was Utah, just to undercut the sentimentality. Right. So I am not Arizona. So I don't like sentimentality, but I do like emotion, but it's got to be real emotion and not pushing in on close-ups emotion.
Can I ask you a question? Since we're on Pushing Daisies, I'll finish the thought on Pushing Daisies. Your whole book, the theme for me, because we've done TV shows together, Jason and I, and the experiences have been insane. And just insane. You can't imagine network notes. And we had 2 studios in the network, so 9 people are giving me notes, and none of them make sense. Yeah. I don't know how, after reading your book, it had so much insight into the aggravation of making a movie and the misdirection in making a movie. For instance, Pushing Daisies, as I recall, you did a test where it was in Culver City or something, and there was a mound of dirt behind you with flower pots with daisies in them, because you were going to put the daisies in later. The studio had no concept that you can do that, so they're running around like crazy going, well, how does this daisies? This doesn't look like daisies. And it links me to another story in there with audience testing. And I never thought about that. how bad audience testing is, and it gives those same executives the wrong info to mess with movies. It's almost like we're going to screw with you so badly right now. Can you address that? Because when we did audience testing, I'm watching guys sit in a room with a big dial saying what they like, what they don't like. It was the most archaic, antiquated thing, and they still do it that way. So talk about you and research and testing and executives, as you can kind of lump that together.
Well, I've learned a lot over the years. What I would say is the name of my book, before I called it Best Possible Place, Worst Possible Time, which is a line from Tommy Lee Jones, which we won't discuss here, perhaps. The book was going to be called Idiots in Charge. Studios really are so afraid. They're afraid of losing their jobs. They always want to get everything back to the biggest common denominator. I always say Joe Farrell, who is the head of NRG, a national research group that ran both in television. They have these dials, and you sit there watching your pilot, and they're turning dials. And we were put on the air. We did the show that was not good, called Notes from the Underground. No, Notes from the Underbelly. And it was not good. But when they asked the audience at the end, why did you like the show? Raise your hand if you like the show. Raise your hand. Yes, lady, why did you like the show? I liked it because it's the kind of show I could start watching, go to the kitchen to make dinner, come back, and I know I wouldn't have missed anything. And that was the best compliment we got, and we were put on the air. So it's horrible. I mean, with Joe Farrell, I used to say that if he was around when they were making Casablanca, Humphrey Bogart would have gotten on the plane. They're so afraid, and they use these testing to manipulate. And also, some movies can't test well because they're visual effects heavy. There's so many reasons why things don't test well. I mean, Her tested terribly, I heard, for several iterations until they got Scarlett Johansson to read the computer voice, but they almost weren't going to release it practically. It was just not scoring well.
But didn't you get up? Didn't you stand up during the because also there's experimenter bias in science, etc., where they ask questions in such a way that it kind of begs an answer. And didn't you get up during a screen? Yeah. So talk about that.
Yeah. Well, at some point, getting the cards back, there are two steps. One is when you screen a movie is people fill out cards. And what you learn from that is the education system in America is horrible. They can't spell words like movie or scary. I mean, it's amazing. And so the cards are actually interesting for the marketing people because they'll see, 70% of the people that really like this movie are women or something like that. But the very first movie I did was Addams Family. And Joe Farrell, we did the cards and the numbers came back. And Joe said, too many very goods, not enough excellence. And I said, and I'm a first-time director. I said, well, Joe, excellent is for an important movie. Comedies will just not get excellent. They'll get very goods because it's not important. Joe said, not true. So the next screening we had of Addams Family, I added 2 additional questions. One was, have you ever seen a comedy you would rate as excellent? And the second was, what was your favorite movie of the last 6 months? 2/3 of the respondents said they had never seen a comedy they would rate as excellent. Favorite movie of the last 6 months, City Slickers, a comedy. So it's so biased. All that kind of stuff is biased, and the studio just uses it so they can point to something and say, "See what we told you." I mean, on Get Shorty, one of the questions is, "What's your least favorite scene?" The least favorite scene in Get Shorty is when Dennis Farina, a brilliant actor who's now dead, playing this mobster, smacks this woman across the face. Oh, and it's the least favorite scene. So MGM wanted to take it out of the movie. And I said, of course it's the least favorite scene. That doesn't mean it shouldn't be in the movie. That just means I have to say, I don't want to see a man slapping a woman on the face, but without that, our villain is just a buffoon. We need some little thing to show the audience that he's a fucker and he might do damage to our lead, Chili Palmer. So I convinced them. Oh, Danny DeVito had final cut on Get Shorty, and so Danny gave it to me. So he said, "Schmuck, it's your movie. Just don't get angry about it." And I'll tell you one last Get Shorty story. The budget for Get Shorty, we couldn't get it made. It took us 6 years. Danny and I went everywhere with it, and MGM finally agrees to make it. And only for $30 million. And the budget comes in $30,250,000. And MGM says, well, you got to lose $250,000. We have a big meeting with Mike Marcus and the heads of the studios. And I go, okay, let's talk about it. Let's see what we can lose. And they're saying, well, don't you have too much in for parking? And I'm going, guys, parking's $2,000 and it's not, we can't do this all day. It's crazy. I'll tell you what we'll do. There's one scene with Gene Hackman, Ben Stiller, who isn't in the movie, Ben Stiller and Travolta, and it's on the set of one of Gene Hackman's 10-Day Wonders, and it's a hilarious scene, but it's 2 nights of shooting. It's cost $250,000, and even though it's a hilarious scene, it doesn't move the plot forward. And if you can lose a scene from a movie and it doesn't affect the story, it shouldn't be in the movie. And Mike Marcus says, how much is it? I said, $250,000. We're on budget. We can make the movie. He goes, it's my favorite scene. You can't take that out. I said, Mike, you have no choice. The budget's $30 million. That scene's $250. We lose that scene. We're at $30 million. We can greenlight it. He says, don't tell me I have no choice. I'm the head of the studio. What's it going to cost to put that scene in? I said, $250. He said, you got it. One of my stories on the TED Talk is, let it be their idea.
Yeah.
I could never shove it down there, but by letting it be Mike's idea to bring it back in, success. And by the way, we shot the scene and it's not in the movie because it's the single funniest scene and it didn't move the story forward.
That is a phenomena, by the way, that maybe you can explain to me and see if it's true for the majority of your work, Bear. So I've directed 2 small features, and when I was making the first one, I happened to be doing prep next to. I'm having a senior moment. James, he did the film with Helen Hunt and Jack Nicholson.
Brooks.
James Brooks. Thank you very much. And James Brooks says to me, so, there's a scene in your movie that you're going to tell me you'd cut off your arm before you cut that scene, and it won't be in your movie. And I went, I don't understand that. I can tell you exactly the scene that I know has to be in the movie. The movie couldn't work without it. And he goes, yeah, it won't be in the movie. And I go, okay, great. And I got to editing. That scene is not in the movie.
Because it didn't move story?
No, I think it did inform story, and it certainly informed character. But when we got to putting this thing together, there was a whole element of the story that we gave it too much emphasis, and it suddenly became unbalanced. And that scene was about that element, and we went, well, if we take that out, then we're not over. I mean, is that common that you're going, I know this movie, I know it backwards, this is what we need, we're going to shoot it, and then you get in the editing room and go, not so much.
So yeah, sometimes yes, sometimes no. That's a problem. If it was always one or the other, it would be easy. Anytime something's your favorite, get rid of it. But sometimes it's your favorite, and I remember the only reason I wanted to direct Men in Black was there was one line in the original script where Will Smith says, Mrs. Adelstein, yeah, 3rd grade teacher, yeah, she's from Venus. Well, one of the moons. It's what Tommy Lee Jones says to Will. And my whole philosophy is no one has a clue what's really going on. There's probably 40 different layers of aliens and dimensions in our rooms right now. So sometimes it is something that you really want to make and you have a way in and all that, and it works. And other times, listen, I thought I screwed up Wild Wild West, and there were several reasons, but I thought that the combination of fantasy and westerns was going to be fantastic, and it just didn't work. But I was pretty sure early on when I signed on that it was going to be a big hit. But tonally was wrong. And
do you know offhand whether that film came before or after Cowboys and Aliens?
I think it was before. What's funny is I wanted to direct Cowboys and Aliens, and I went to Spielberg, and he said, well, I've got Ron Howard doing it, but if Ron doesn't do it, you've got it. And Ron did not do it, and I did not have it. So how does that tell you?
Wow. So getting back to Shorty, the thing in the book, the book's fascinating, but the thing that got me is you working with Gene Hackman, who was, how do we put it, difficult and, like you said, kind of a bit self-loathing. And also then Tommy Lee Jones, who you said day one was an issue because he's a great actor. These guys know their lines. They're off book. But was trying to do comedy and be funny, which made you think, I'm going to die the whole length of this movie, because if he's trying to do comedy, we're dead. I don't recall. How did you tell?
You're telling me Al Gore's roommate is not a funny man?
Oh, he may be funny, but when you're trying to do comedy, so how did you tell him? I forgot. How did you tell Tommy Lee Jones, cut it out?
Well, first of all, the reason Gene Hackman was so funny in Get Shorty was because he was not trying to be funny. That's another rule, is you never want your actors to be funny. You just want them to play the reality of the scene. And if the scene is absurd, then they'll be funny, or, but if they act funny, and that's where I could get into a whole Kramer discussion, but I won't go there. But in any case, so Gene never tried to be funny, was hilarious. I'm shooting with Tommy Lee Jones. He's been a handful in pre-production. We had to fire the hair and makeup people and bring others on because he made them cry, et cetera, et cetera.
Wow.
And it's the first day of shooting. Will is still finishing Independence Day. So for the first 2 weeks, I've just got scenes with Tommy. First day of shooting, and Tommy is talking to an illegal alien from outer space alien. And Tommy knows the alien's language, and Tommy deals with aliens all the time. And Mikey is the alien, and he's got all these hands and flippers. And Mikey is speaking in an alien language, which Tommy understands. And that's the comedy of it. So first day of shooting, and Mikey is going on with his flippers in his hands and giving excuses. And Tommy's line is, "That's enough, Mikey. Put up your hands and all your flippers," right? That's funny. Take one. Oh, and action. Tommy says, "That's enough, Mikey. Put up your hands and all your flippers." Cut. See, I think it's going to be funny, or Tommy, if you don't acknowledge that putting up your flippers is funny. You see, you do this every day. It's just, and Tommy looks at me like, and it's the first day, first shot, like he wants me dead. And we go again, and Tommy said, "And all your flippers." Cut. So now I'm walking to him holding my sides, the script pages, because I don't want to look at him. So now I'm saying, "So Tommy, this line," and I'm pointing at the script so I don't have to look at Tommy so I won't die instantly from his x-ray vision. I go, "What you want to do is just throw it away. Government issue. You do this all the time. Joe Friday." And for 22 weeks, I sat on Tommy. I wouldn't let him be funny. His agent calls me and says, "You don't want Tommy to be funny. You only want Will Smith to be funny." I said, "Listen, have you ever watched Gracie Allen and George Burns or Abbott and Costello? You need two people to be funny. One is funny and one is reacting. And I'll tell you right now, the reaction shot is always going to get a bigger laugh than the punchline." I said, I was a cinematographer on When Harry Met Sally. And as funny as Meg gets laughs, faking the orgasm, you cut to Billy doing absolutely nothing, maybe chewing a little bit on his corned beef sandwich, and the laughs go from 80 dBs to 100 dBs because the reaction shot is the audience's point of view. So I tell him, Tommy is going to see the movie at the end of the 20, when we're done editing it, and he's going to love it. Okay, no, I doubt it. You're just trying to make Will be the only funny person. now we have to screen the movie for Tommy because we're going to have our press junket. Tommy, of course, sees the movie and loves it. And every single journalist that goes to interview Tommy over the next 3 days of the junket and says, how did you get to be so funny? Tommy's response, God love him, is the secret to being funny is to stand next to Will Smith and do whatever Barry Sonnenfeld tells you to do. And that was, coming from Tommy, that was perhaps the biggest compliment I've ever gotten from an actor.
Wow.
And I love him, and he's a handful.
And before we leave Men in Black, we got to. Can we stay with Men in Black for just a minute longer?
Yeah.
Because you had to drive to Neverland Ranch. Because Michael Jackson wanted a cameo in that movie. You didn't drive with Scott Rudin, you said, because he's crazy. He threw a phone at his windshield and it was cracked. It had spider veins in it. And you thought, I'm not driving with him. So talk to what happened. He wanted to be in the movie, and you wanted him to do the closing theme song, thinking this would be a huge hit.
Two different things.
Okay.
Rudin and I were going to Neverland to convince Michael to write the theme song for the end song for Addams Family Values.
Okay. I'm sorry. Okay.
We had Hammer do Addams Family, and we were driving out there to have Michael do Addams Family Values. And he was 6, and we're at Neverland. He's 6 hours late. We're so bored. I got the estate manager to open up his amusement park, and there's nothing more joyful than watching Scott Rudin and myself on little horses going up and down on the carousel. But wait, getting back to Men in Black, the name of the book, Best Possible Place, Worst Possible Time, is based on what happened on Men in Black 2. It was late at night. We were at the Disneyland ranch shooting some scene. It's always freezing in the valley at night. I'm in my down coat. I'm sitting next to Will Smith. It's 2 a.m. We're getting ready. So we called Tommy to come out of his camper. And Tommy sits down next to me. I got Will on one side, Tommy on the other side. And for no reason at all, I say to Tommy, because I also play games like Death is Not an Option, Who Would You Rather Have Sex With, That Grip, or Your Mother, that kind of stuff. Right. And so anyway, we're there. The best one is I asked Ethan Coen, if death was not an option, would you rather have sex with your brother Joel or with your mother? And Ethan's response was, well, I still have to work with Joel, so I guess Mom, which was really good. Anyway.
With Michael Jackson in Men in Black.
Okay, Men in Black 3. He was having an album come out, and it's at Sony. So Sony really wanted to put Michael in some part. And I said, oh, please don't. He didn't do it in Men in Black 1. And whatever we do is going to take forever, and he's going to slow it down. And it's the kind of scene that we're going to have to take out of the movie because it doesn't move the plot forward. And it's just going to be a waste of time. But they really wanted him in the movie. And I said, okay, he has to play an alien. Michael refuses to play an alien. He only will play a Men in Black officer. So I go, okay, I know what I'll do. So we set up blue screen, and I'm going to shoot Michael in front of blue screen, but I'm going to eventually put him in Antarctica with like penguins and stuff. And anyway, so Michael's won't come out of the camper. I go, Jesus. I call Amy Pascal, who ran Sony at the time. Amy, Michael won't come out of the camper. This was your stupid idea. Get him out of the camper. And Amy said, you're the director. It's your problem. Thanks, Ames. So I go into Michael. I convince him to come and let us just line up the shot and make sure we're lighting it properly. He comes out in his red pajamas because he won't get into his outfit because he's nervous and maybe he shouldn't do it. We line up the shot. He goes back. Still won't come out of the camper. I call Amy. Amy says, your problem. Get him out of the camper. Eventually, I say to Michael, look, Michael, we don't have a lot of time. If you don't want to do it, that's okay. I'll get someone else. But if you want to do it, you have to come back to the set in the next 5 minutes. Otherwise, we have to move on. Amy calls me 2 minutes later. Did you just tell Michael that you're firing him? No, Amy, that's not what. Okay, go back there and fix it. Okay, I finally get this is like directing. I finally get Michael to come out. We're lined up. He's in the Men in Black suit. And I say, roll camera. And he is talking to the off-camera Rip Torn, a certifiably insane human being whose name in the movie is Zed. Roll camera. Michael says, Zeke, cut. Hey, Michael, his name is Zed. Roll camera. Zeke, cut. Now Zed is screaming, why is he calling me Zeke? That's okay. I know. I'm going to fix it. Michael, you got to really call him Zed. Isn't Zeke better? Well, whether it's better or not, this is the third film, and we've established his name is Zed, so you got to really call him. Roll camera, Zeke. And so that took a really long time to get him to just say Zed. But he finished a shot, and he wrote me a note saying I had made his dream come through from the time he was a little baby. He wanted to be a Men in Black character, which is amazing because the first Men in Black hadn't even come out yet. But I have that note from him framed, and he was a lovely guy, just had no idea what reality was. But neither did Rip Torn. So.
Well, let me tell you. So that movie that I mentioned, where Rip Torn was one of my actors. And he actually was great. He was having a fun time, and we got along great.
Right.
And I had heard that he could be challenging. And I was not seeing any of that until we're shooting a scene, and he goes up on a line, and he calls out, "What's my line? What's my line?" And the script supervisor goes, "You asshole." And Rip goes off. How fucking, and she goes, that's your line, sir. So I got to see a little bit of the famous Rip Torn,
What's his name? Didn't they hate each other? Didn't Rip Torn? Wasn't he hated?
Yeah.
How did you patch that? Yeah, by Tommy Lee Jones. If they hate each other, how did you have them work together?
Well, first of all, I didn't know they hated each other until they were both hired. And they're both from Texas, but Tommy's the shotgun shooting dove kind of Texan, and Rip Torn is the when I have free time, I'm making new fishing lures kind of Texan. So, and also just Tommy has no patience for incompetent acting. I mean, there's a line in the first Men in Black where Rip Torn says to Tommy Lee Jones, they've now recruited Will Smith, and the line to Tommy is, "Hey, Kay," Tommy's name is Kay, "give the kid some firepower," meaning give him a gun, right? Okay, roll camera. Rip says, "Hey, Kay, give the kid some firepower." Cut. Hey, Rip, can you just enunciate firepower just a little bit more? Because it's... Okay, roll camera. Okay, give the kid some firepower. Cut. This keeps going on. And Tommy is saying to Will tells me this later, will someone just tell that damn fool to say, give the kid a gun? At that point, we're on take 9, and I turned to Rip, and not hearing what Tommy had said, and said, Rip, let's just try and give the kid a gun. And we finally, I think that's what's in the movie, but it was that kind of stuff that Rip couldn't lose his Texanness for that one line. But listen, that's a movie, you were asking about how you can predict things. I mean, that's a movie that was so under the radar. We didn't think we were going to be the biggest film of that year, which we ended up being. And I loved being under the radar. It was all about Jurassic Park 2 and Batman and Robin. So it was not about Men in Black. And same with Get Shorty. When I saw the rough cut of Get Shorty, I took to my bed for 2 weeks. I thought the fucking movie was unreleasable. And so you never know what, and I thought Wild Wild West was going to be a good movie. So there you go.
Let's talk about, so under the mantle of that. So I know you went to film school, and I know that you came to the realization that you enjoyed being a cinematographer and were a very talented cinematographer. So I have two questions about that. We can do them in either order. You go, as you said, when you and Joel and Ethan started to shoot Blood Simple, you said in one of your talks, you realized that the three of you, for the first time, were standing on a film set, that none of you had actually done what you were there to do. The signature for me of Coen Brother films are a certain kind of storytelling quirk, but also they have a visual style. And I know you did their first three films. So is the Coen Brother visual style actually a Barry Sonnenfeld visual style? Because when you stopped doing their films continued to look similar. And I don't know if it's because you set the mantle and they kept it, or did they have that kind of unique vision and you were helping them refine and implement it? What was the sort of balance of creativity there?
What was really great about working with Joel and Ethan is we were all sort of seeing the same movie and had exactly the same vision of how to make it. I knew what lenses to use, but we all agreed that was the frame we wanted. I would say that I, because of what I did with them, we moved the camera a lot on to a certain extent, both Blood Simple and Raising Arizona. The camera is let's just say another character in the movie, and that's me. And I always wanted to find a way to act without having to act. And by me having all those self-indulgent camera moves, like in Blood Simple, there's a shot where the camera's tracking along just the surface of the bar, but there's a drunk halfway down the bar, and the camera booms up self-consciously over the drunk, booms back down, and continues. Now that shot is so self-conscious, it's really saying that's filmmaking. And I remember going to Joel and Ethan's cutting room one day, and they had taken that shot out. And I said, "Why do you take that shot out? It's like the funniest shot in the movie." And Joel said, "I don't know. It feels a little self-confident, self-indulgent." And I said, "Have you seen the rest of the movie, Joel?" and they put it back in. So I would say that we had a lot going in that was very similar. Joe and I, although we didn't know each other at film school, both went to NYU Film School, him an undergraduate, me in graduate. And what you learned at film school, because in those days you shot your little movies on 16 millimeter film, not on video, which is very expensive. A roll of film was like $80. Processing was like $30. You have to code the soundtrack. There's all this stuff. And then you have to rent an editing machine. It was so expensive that you had to pre-plan everything. We would never shoot a master shot from beginning to end. We'd know where would we use it? Oh, at the beginning of the scene, probably, and the end. We'll never use it in the middle, so let's just not even waste film shooting the middle of the scene. That's what you learned at film school. You've got 7 days with the camera. You better plan every single shot, design everything. And so when Joe and I and Ethan went down to Austin to shoot Blood Simple, every single storyboard had not only a storyboard, but an architectural viewpoint and an aerial image. And we were so over prepped to make that film because we only had, I think we had, actually it was a lot. It was like 42 days. But, and so Joe and Ethan and I think equally brought the same thing to each other. I didn't learn from them about how to shoot movies, and they didn't learn that from me. We did it together, and actually, I think they're less stylizing than when I was around. They pan a lot more. I never let them pan. I think panning is a very lazy thing.
Well, then that's
anyway. They're fantastic. Yeah,
that's part two of my question. So you establish yourself as a cinematographer, and I remember one of the movies that I directed. This Fred Schuler, who is a lovely DP, came in, and I realized that his knowledge and understanding of film was so far beyond what I knew, and I really thought, if I hire this guy, I'm not going to direct the film. He's going to direct the film. And my producer said, "Well, ask him the question." And I called him back and I said, "Fred, listen, you know 100 times more than I do about how to make a movie, but I do have an aesthetic and I do have an idea. And my question is, am I helping you or are you helping me?" And he said, "If I wanted to direct, I would go and direct. I'm not a director. I'm a this and a that and a, and we had a great time. But you make the leap from cinematographer to director. Now, was that something that was in the game plan from film school, going, I'm going to direct one day? Or did you just realize you get out there and you go, this is not so hard. I could be calling the shots here. How do you make that decision to go?
Neither. I didn't make the decision. Scott Rudin made the decision. I was really happy as a cinematographer. I could control the look of what I wanted. I would have an idea and I could execute it, from lighting to shot design. A lot of the directors I worked with really invited me in to help stylize the show. You know, whether it was Rob on When Harry Met Sally and Misery, or you know, Penny Marshall on Big is another story for another whole podcast. But in any case, I was very happy as a cinematographer. And Scott Rudin was the head of production at Fox when I did Raising Arizona. So he saw dailies all the time. And he was the head of Fox when he saw what I did for Penny Marshall on Big. And Scott would call Penny every night and say, just keep doing what Barry suggests. So Scott knew I was a cinematographer that was also contributing more than just, let's put the light, the 10K over there. And I'm watching the Indianapolis 500 with Sweetie while finishing shooting Misery for Rob Reiner. And we're at the Four Seasons and there's a knock. Bellman, here's a script from Scott Rudin. He wants you to read it and meet him in 2 hours at Hugo's, which is a weird restaurant in West Hollywood that serves eggs and pasta.
Right.
Oh my God.
My favorite dish, my pasta mama.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know, but the garlic, it's
a lot.
Seems
Yeah,
tonally confused.
Yeah.
It's tonally confused. So I read the script for Addams Family. I'm not looking to direct. And he says, I want you to direct this. And the script as written was not very good. It had all these punchlines. It was everything we've been talking about today that it didn't have. It just, everything was close up punchline, close up punchline. I go to Scott and I say to Sweetie, who I'm with, my wife, I say, what do I do? She says, tell him the truth. You love Addams Family. You grew up with the New Yorker and the Charles Addams cartoons, but this isn't funny. So I go and I say to Scott, before we start, why me? Why would you want me to direct? And he said, well, I went to Tim Burton and I went to Terry Gilliam. And after all the good directors passed, I thought I'd try you.
That sounds like Scott.
And what he meant was he wanted a visual stylist to direct Addams Family and not just a comedy guy, even if they were good. Like Gary Marshall could have directed it, but it wouldn't have had a visual style. It would have been funny, but it would have been different. So I said, you know what, Scott, if you can get me hired, yeah, sure, I'll direct it. He got me hired. I directed Addams Family, which was a nightmare because, you know, as I say about Scott Rudin, I love him and I wish he were dead.
Yeah.
He was great, but he was a pain in the ass, but he was great. And that, in the same way, Blood Simple totally launched my career as a cinematographer. I mean, Janet Maslin raved about me in the New York Times. I was an unheard of DP, and she's raving about my work in Blood Simple. And in the same way, Addams Family relaunched my career as a director. And I didn't want to direct because I was afraid of actors, and I didn't think I'd know how to direct them. And Sweetie said, you know what? You're with actors every day. As a DP, you know how to direct them. And then I realized, oh yeah, just make them talk fast.
I watched Misery the other day. It happened to come on while I'm in my office, and I have it on. And I remember reading, I'm laughing because now knowing that James Caan can't sit still for 2 seconds, and you got him in a bed for how many weeks, but he's out of control. He's constantly moving and twitching and doing. So you had to have him lie there and crawl on the floor and be still. And this is the last guy that could possibly do that, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Have you ever worked with him?
I've never even met him.
Yeah.
I met his son, but I never met him. And listen,
Uh-huh.
I love James Caan because you want to talk about tear up in a second. Put Brian's song on and I'm gone.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I've long been a fan, but I've heard he can be a little squirrely.
It's the first day of shooting, and Jimmy came very late in the game. Rob tried to get everyone, Warren Beatty and a million male actors. So Jimmy came late in the game, and Jimmy has like every sort of twitch and ADD, or he just can't sit still. He also, I suspect, was being helped by certain pharmaceuticals, but I'm not sure about that. But in any case, he's out of control. And he's got to lie in bed for like 18 years, right? So first day we're shooting. It's a really easy scene. We're up in Tahoe or Truckee. It's like 6 shots. It's going to take half a day, and we'll be able to load the trucks and go back to LA. And Jimmy has to stand still, and he's davening. He looks like we're in shul, and it's like the endless davening thing. And he's moving and twitching, and he can't light this match. And it's now lunch, and we haven't gotten a shot off.
Boy.
So I used to eat with Rob and his wife, Michelle. I used to eat with them in the camper every day. And I go back to Rob's camper, and I say to Rob, "Hey, Rob, remember Vietnam?" And Rob says, "No, Barry, we can't fire him. It's day one. We're starting to shoot. We've got sets built." I go, "You know what? That's what everyone said. And then there were 50,000 people dead, and we still didn't achieve anything. Get out now. He is your Vietnam. Get out." And Rob always loved that because every day he'd just look at me and I just mouth, and listen, this is how bad it gets. We're in Kathy Bates' bedroom, which many scores of pages take place. Jimmy in this shot has to get out of bed and start crawling towards the door, and we're now in like week 13, and everyone's fed up with Jimmy, and the camera's underhung so I can track right along the ground with Jimmy crawling. And Jimmy says, "Hey, Rob, how far should I crawl?" Rob turns to me and says, "Bah." By the way, Jason, I love that you call me Bah. And Rob says, "Bah." And I spit on the floor as the mark of where he should crawl to. And Rob Reiner, the director of the picture, says to Jimmy, "Crawl to the loogie, Jimmy." So neither one of us are giving him any kind of respect. And that's how we ended the show, with "Crawl to the loogie, Jimmy." Oh, my
God.
Well, you know what's funny as you say that? We all, as kids, grew up Kubrick. The movies of Kubrick are insane.
Yeah.
I once lied to get Malcolm McDowell to audition for something just so I could talk to him about Kubrick. And I had no intention of putting him in the thing, but I had to meet him because I had to find out about Kubrick. And the story you tell, I think, is Vincent D'Onofrio, that Kubrick told him just keep gaining weight. But when he went to Kubrick finally and gained all the weight and asked him about acting, what did Kubrick say?
"That's your job." D'Onofrio gained all this weight and would go out every week to his Kubrick's manor, and Kubrick would say, "Okay, go gain more weight." He finally came one week. Kubrick said, "That's the right amount of weight." D'Onofrio said, "Okay, great. Now can we talk about my character?" And Kubrick said, "That's your job." And boy, don't I wish I could say that to every single actor and not have to give them any motivation.
I will tell you, it's not uncommon. My Broadway debut was Merrily We Roll Along. I was 20 years old, working for Stephen Sondheim and Hal Prince. And on the third day of rehearsal, Hal was staging a scene that I couldn't make sense of. And the staging only confused it more for me. So I went to Hal at the end of the day and I said, "Hal, I just have a question or two about, the intention for the character in this scene." And Hal says to me, I'm 20 years old, Broadway debut. He goes, "Kiddo, you're here because you know how to do this. I'll see you opening night."
Jeez.
I love that. make you feel better or worse?
Well, honestly, it made me feel better, and it set me up for the truth of what is largely my career, where I've worked with some wonderful directors, but they weren't necessarily actor directors. And what their expectation was is, and Tom Hanks said this, I'm going to quote Tom. He said he got yelled at one time for fooling around on a set when he was a young actor. And the director said, here's your job. Show up on time, know the lines, and have a goddamn idea. And I realized that I had to come with the idea. I mean, I got the job based on an idea. So I had to bring ideas to the process. And the truth is that a lot of the directors I've worked with, that's their expectation, is that I'm going to come with the ideas, and they'll sort of nudge one way or the other. But I can't go up to most directors and go, I'm lost here and I don't know how to find my way, because that's not their training. That's not their background. And that's not what they're thinking about in that moment. And Hal Prince, who is a fantastic conceptualist, but he wasn't a moment-to-moment actor's director. And when he said, he basically said, I trust you. Figure it out. Make a choice. I'll tell you if it's wrong. And I went, okay, I'm on my own. And my acting teacher at the time was also saying, I'm teaching you a methodology so that you never have to ask somebody else for an idea. You come with ideas. And,
see, that all sounds really great. But what's interesting is, if what you were saying to Hal is, the way you're blocking me, I don't know why I'm just standing up and walking to the corner over there just because you think it'll be a better angle later in the scene. It makes no sense for me to stand up in the middle of her saying. That's really interesting, and I have a feeling that was the kind of thing
That's what I wanted to say, but I didn't have the chutzpah to say it,
Right.
I wanted to say, I don't know what this is making no sense to me, what you're doing. But I couldn't say that.
Conversely, you had a story with Delroy Lindo, which I love because he calls you Barry Sonnenfeld the whole time, the double name thing. He always use name. Where he wanted to use a briefcase in the scene, hence that. Felt comfortable, and you finally said, use it in the scene, knowing that it wouldn't work, correct?
Sometimes an actor comes in with an idea, but is only aware of his part of the scene and doesn't understand that that's great for his character. That idea could work, but makes no sense within the story. Delroy plays a villain in Get Shorty. Travolta brings him the suitcase with the $300,000 so that he can get Rene Russo back, who's been kidnapped. Delroy gets a briefcase, and then there's a whole scene that follows. We rehearse. The rehearsal's fine, and I say to Delroy, we're going to rehearse again, but you got to leave the suitcase much earlier. Just don't hold on to that suitcase. It doesn't make sense. Barry Sonnenfeld, I would not do that. The whole raison d'etre for my character was to get this money. The whole movie is about me getting this money. And I'm thinking, no, really, the movie is not about you getting the money. It's about Travolta. Anyway, and I would never let go of the suitcase. I go, Delroy, you're in your own home. You're standing next to your bodyguard, which is holding a gun on Travolta. There's no reason why you would still hold on to the money. And if you still hold on to the money, when the scene moves out to the balcony and you have to go over, you can't have the money with you. So you're going to have to put it down at some point. And this seems the best place to put it down, not in the middle of a fight scene. Barry Sonnenfeld, I would never put. So now I'm a petulant mother. Okay, Delroy, you want to hold on to the briefcase? You can hold on to it, but you have to hold on to it for the whole scene. And you could never say to me halfway through the night, Barry Sonnenfeld, I don't want to hold the briefcase anymore, because you're stuck with it. Barry Sonnenfeld, that's great, because I would never let go of the briefcase. Now, I know that he's going to not want to do it. And I also know where I can get rid of it later in the scene. I said, okay, but do not come to me and say, halfway through the scene, Barry Sonnenfeld, this makes no sense. I have to get rid of the briefcase. Why am I still holding the briefcase? So, by the way, I feel I am an actor-director because I love actors. I think what they do is incredibly difficult when they're so real. And I thought I wouldn't like actors, and I love working with actors. And what's weird is I think I've become an actor's director, and B, I'm much more interested in sound than visual stuff. I'm always saying to the cinematographer, Yeah, that's fine. But I don't want to do that because it'll fuck up the sound and the microphone will have to be too far away. So let's do this instead. So I've become a sound guy and an actor guy. Well, I used to become, now I'm just I'm accidentally retired. But anyway.
What does that mean?
That I'd like to keep working, but nothing's come my way. When I'm bored, I keep rewriting. Zweibel rewrote our television pilot as a feature film, and I've been rewriting it from time to time, and it's getting pretty funny.
It was funny to begin with. Do you have speaking of that, so Peter, you may not know this, but Alan and Barry and Rob Marshall, listen to me, Rob Reiner, rest his soul, were nice enough to invite me to join in the possibility of doing a TV series based on Barry's first book, Call Your Mother. And I'm very flattered. And we really went everywhere we could possibly go and could not push it through. Do you have an inkling? I was only, the Jew in me goes, oh, it was me. They didn't want me. And I actually said to Rob at one point, if I'm the problem, Rob, please don't feel like, you have to carry me if I'm not the A-list actor that they're looking for. But do you have an inkling about why we couldn't set that project? Because it was funny. It was they could see it on paper. It wasn't like they had to speculate about what it was going to be. And
right, because we had a pilot.
Yeah, and between you and Rob, I would figure that would be a shoo-in of confidence for any company to make that thing. Do you have a thought on it?
Well, it was you in the fact that if we had gone in with Michael B. Jordan playing the neurotic Jew, we would have had 4 offers.
Sure.
So to that extent, I have to say we should have gone with Michael B. Jordan as Barry Sonnenfeld, because that might have gotten us on the air.
Yeah.
To that extent, I have to say it was you. The problem was I think they didn't understand it tonally. I think they thought it was too old. I think they thought it was derivative of Herb, which it wasn't. And there's so few things that anyone wants to do now that they want it to seem big. And, I was constantly trying to tell them that this was really, really, really funny. And I don't think studios know how to read. If only AI was around then, AI would have been given the script and AI would have said, buy this. This is really funny. Weirdly enough, all those development people are not our friends. They're
Barry, we got to wrap up, but I got to ask you, did you create, tell Jason, because there's a sense that you created Seinfeld's Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee.
No, absolutely not. I had an idea for years about doing an interview show where I drove cross country or long distances with famous actors, directors, because 2 things happen on long road trips. One, it's so banal that at some point your guest says, I guess you want to know about the time I fucked Rihanna. Just because you've run out of, and so it's banal, but also it's also very dynamic, because every time you get gas, you then get back on the road and eventually have to repass the weird pickup truck with the 27 dead deer on it. So it's both dynamic and banal. And I thought it was such a great idea. And, my agency went to, I think, Ford or GM, where they had a relationship, but I was not a known entity as a, funny guy or anything. So it didn't get picked up. Jerry is my neighbor in Telluride. He calls me up one morning and says, hey, let's take a drive. I've got an idea. We get in his Porsche 911 Turbo with snow tires and we drive to Rico. We get out and Jerry says to me, I swear this is true. He says, I have an idea for a TV show. And I said, I know, I have the same idea. And he said, how could you know? I've never told you what this idea is. I haven't told anyone. How do you know what the idea is? I said, I know. He says, all right, tell me the idea. I said, an interview show where you and a guest each week drive long distances and have these great conversations, and you can cut them 8 different ways. Because as you do 20 of these, you could have one show where it's just people saying, really? Or the first time they, were on stage. Or you could do whole shows that are interviews with that person. So that's the show. You interviewing someone while taking a long drive. And Jerry says, mine is totally different. Mine is me interviewing someone while we're driving to get coffee. And I said, totally different idea, Jer. So weirdly, we both had the same idea. I did not in any way give Jerry that idea, but how was it that when he said, I have an idea for a show, I knew that it was an interview show in cars?
Or Barry,
or is it possible? Yeah.
Is it possible, since you went first, that wasn't his idea, and he changed it after you heard your idea?
Oh, that's so funny.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, that's Jerry Seinfeld.
And by the way,
one of the great theft.
One last thing before we go. So this show happened because I didn't want to do a podcast. I've been on radio for a long time. I had a pretty big audience, and I didn't want to do podcasts. Everybody's doing podcasts. I said, I don't want to do a podcast. So Jason, I came to Jason and said, everybody's talking me to do a podcast. And I said, I think I came up with a concept. Jason used to always make me laugh, being my best friend. We spend an inordinate amount of time. Anybody cuts him off in traffic, his answer is, really? Or somebody says something stupid. He goes, really? So you have something called that you did that Rob Reiner named called the concept of the silent schmuck, which is basically... Really? Now, I couldn't get really.com. It was $500,000. And it's funnier, really, no, really, because no, really implies your first answer was BS. No, Barry, really. No, really.
Right.
So talk about the silent schmuck before we go.
Okay. I will say that, Jason, that really is my favorite. I mean, people I meet for the first time when I leave at night, they'll say, I really like this because I'm all about really. And you can go, really, or really. I mean, there's a million ways to say really also.
Right.
Okay, so Rob teaches me the concept of the silent schmuck. The silent schmuck is saying you're a schmuck silently. And there are two examples. One is if I say to the hair and makeup people, let's go with the red wig. And they go, the red wig, schmuck. The schmuck is silent, right? The other way is you go, let's go with the red wig. And they go, really? Schmuck. So that's the silent schmuck. Rob got it from Herb Gardner, the Broadway writer. But the silent schmuck is brilliant. And directors, as you know, Jason, get it about 20 times a day.
Oh, sure.
The cameraman can say, you want to be on the 27 or the 21? Let's go with the 21. Really? Really? Or really? 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 They all work. And I will say to people, do not do that again. Do never, ever. If you disagree with me, say, can we still talk about why I think the blonde wig is better? But do not passive aggressively go, really? Because I know what you're saying, so just say it so we can talk about it. Maybe you're right, but don't give me the fucking silent schmuck. And then their response is, really? So there you go.
Here's the equivalent of that in Larry David world. I once had an argument with Larry. I can't remember what it's about. And he's vehemently, offering his point of view, and I'm vehemently defending my point of view. And finally, I'm just exhausted. And I say these words, you know what, Larry? And he goes, don't do it. Don't do it. You're going to roast. This is what he said. You're going to roast David me. I go, what? He goes, my mother. Anytime we have an argument, she would end it with, you know what, Larry, do what you want to do.
I got Rose David.
And I got, you know what, Larry? And I was absolutely going to say, do what you want to do. And he went, no. Right. I also want to share with you before we go, because your story about dealing with the actors and, getting them to do things. There's a great story attributed to Steve Martin. I hope it's true. I heard it third hand, if not more, where you had an actor, Steve had written this thing and he was directing the film, and an actor came up to him and gave him a very erudite, smart speech about why his character would not do the thing that he was being directed to do. And Steve said, articulate and passionate and with points galore about, justifying. And he said, and that's why I think my character wouldn't do this. And Steve said, I took a long moment and I shook my head and I went, you know what? Let's make them.
Yeah, exactly.
Barry, thank you so much
Thanks,
for your time.
Barry.
Right.